Hi, seminary scholars. Can you believe we are already starting week 3? I'd like to share some things with you that I'm kind of excited about. First of all, I'm really excited about increased relevant engagement that I'm seeing among all of you in the discussion posts. To help you continue to go deeper with one another, I've created a shared document that contains each of your names in the track that you have self-identified. When you are discussing with one another, it might be helpful to know what track you've identified as. Now, remember, you can discuss back and forth with one another between the tracks, but I thought it might be helpful if you could know who was in your track, and more importantly, who is in a very similar ministry context. That way, if you have a question, if you want more resources, if you want to know something from someone who's probably experiencing very similar things in their similar context, you can go directly to them. So I hope that you will find that helpful. Again, it's in the shared document file. Another thing that I'm excited about, I'm seeing your discussions with one another, your posts to one another, again, going deeper. So some things that I try to do when I am discussing back and forth with your posts that might be helpful for you to think about. Yes, absolutely. Find something to genuinely compliment that person on within their post. We all want encouragement. We all need encouragement. But then also go a little deeper. What really jumped out at you? Is there a quote? Is there a theme? What is it that really hit you in a spot where you would like to, A, maybe get more clarity, B, express some intrigue and ask them another question so that you can continue to learn more. Try to figure out how you can build on what they have already shared, and in that process, perhaps that's something that you can integrate into what you're doing in your ministry context or in your learns and in the replies that you're making to your discussion. So let's use one another to help teach, encourage, and build. Another really helpful thing is to share resources. When we all share what is really impactful to us, we can each begin to build our own resource file. And you may not be able to dig into each one of them at that moment, but later on you can remember, hey, I remember that Connie gave me this TED Talk or this blog or this book reference. I'd like to pull that out now and learn a little bit more. Please also continue to reference your readings and make sure that you add a reference list at the end of your discussion post, because it helps us be able to see what you used, and again, it builds our resources and our reference list. So overall, great job. Keep up the relevant engagement. Your assignments, they're looking great. I try to add a lot of comments. We'll see how well that continues to work out as the class goes on. You need to download your papers because I embed my comments along the side in Word documents. Most of you are submitting them, thank you, in Word documents, so I just add notes to those. Make sure you read those. If they aren't clear, of course, please ask me. We want to learn together. Probably the most frequent question has been, is this Chicago style or is it APA style in submitting my papers? It's both. So I looked back at what Dean Joseph has required of us at the seminary, and what he has stated is if you have less than 1 year in your program, you may submit according to APA. So you get grandfather claused in. If you have more than 1 year in the program, you've been asked to transition to Chicago. Now, this is a learning curve for all of us, so do your best, but take a shot at it. I've done APA all my life too, so I'm learning right along with you. What I found as a helpful resource is if you go to OCLS, there are templates for the Chicago style, just like there were for APA. So boom, that's super helpful as you make that transition. Just do your best. That's all I'm asking. Keep me posted. Another thing that I am loving, and just a helpful hint to some of us, the devotional that's provided each week prior to our readings and to the assignments helps ground us in the biblical principles for that week. All right? It is important that you read that, and thank you to the many, many, many of you that are adding comments and asking for prayer requests, encouraging one another by praying. This is yet another opportunity for us to learn more and more about one another and to go deeper relationally. It's something that helps anchor us as brothers and sisters in Christ in this class. Now, if you will recall, the syllabus mentions that I will not be necessarily commenting on each one of those. This is a forum for you as students to work together. However, I do read them all, and yes, I do pray for all of you and according to the requests that you have been given. There are times I may appropriately make a comment, but for the most part, I'm going to stay out of your way there, right? So you're not graded on it, but you're expected to do it. So if you've not been doing it, I need you to hop on to the relationship train here of encouraging and supporting your fellow students through reading and responding on the devotional subtopic, all right? Thanks. Okay, week 3. What does this week look like? PowerPoint has the summary of the main themes for this week, both for Track A and Track B. This video, which now that I have my own YouTube channel, we can go longer than the 3 minutes. That was all I could get on to Brightspace, and then many of you weren't even able to get it. So I apologize for all of that. But now you can check me out on YouTube, and let's keep that our secret. We don't want to pass that around to just everybody, okay? Something will go viral, and I don't know if I'm prepared to comment on that. All right, your readings. Make sure you do your readings. Discussion posts per the comments that I just gave you. Those are due Tuesday night. You know the routine by now. Follow-ups by Thursday, and sometimes even after that. I try to get around to those sometime on Wednesday, but I do my best, right? Just like I expect you to do your best. Assignment this week is you're going to write Chapter 3, which is a summary of what you've learned in Week 3 to add to Week 1 and Week 2 in your learning growth plan. Now, I'm going to be looking those over hopefully this weekend, Chapters 1 and 2, and giving you feedback. Remember, we're going to continue to build on these. We're going to be rewriting them. Again, we're learning together. A couple helpful hints, perhaps. Use headings. First of all, remember you're writing chapters, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, according to the week. Use headings. That helps you in your thought process put things in the right places. And make sure that you add your resources. Make sure you look at what is the requirement for resources for the paper. Again, we're going to continue to work on this. So I'm just trying to share some helpful things earlier rather than later. All right, Week 3 content. It is about leadership and understanding followers' needs this week. So as we begin to think about our strengths, I wanted to just go back and kind of recap why those are important before we step into meeting our followers' needs. So first of all, I wanted to tell you that even though Prairie Lakes Church doesn't have it all figured out, something that I think we do really well where I work is strengths. And each one of us have one of these nifty little boxes, picture frames that have our strengths listed. We keep them in a prominent place in our office, and the reason is that we have a common vocabulary for when we talk about each other's strengths, and we are able to go to the people that have perhaps the strengths that will help accelerate what it is that we're working on or our particular ministry need at the time. I recently talked to one of our executive pastors, Pastor Chris Rigg, who is a huge proponent of these strengths, and I asked him, why has it been important at Prairie Lakes Church? How has it helped us? And he said something like, as we continue to mature as Christ followers, something we want to do is look more and more like Christ. And one of the things that is helpful is if we have an understanding of how God has wired us. And these strengths give vocabulary to that wiring. And they allow us as leaders and followers to be able to kind of be a little bit more self-aware of each other and ourselves as we position people in ministry in places where we can use those strengths, and those people can be used to leverage their strengths for a kingdom force. So we have ultimately more kingdom impact here at Prairie Lakes Church because we more clearly understand how God has wired us, how He has wired those that we work with, and how we can ultimately work together to greater impact for the kingdom. So that's how it's working at Prairie Lakes Church. Again, we're not perfect, but we've worked pretty hard on getting really healthy with understanding our strengths and using them to help us move forward. So speaking of getting healthy, this week you're going to find out that there are certain things that as a leader you can do to meet your followers' basic needs. And it's kind of intriguing to find out that followers seem to have 4 basic needs that maybe you wouldn't intuitively come to, but you will after you read the readings for this week and actually maybe dig into a little bit of what do you need as a follower. So in summary, those basic needs were trust, compassion, stability, and hope. So as a leader, I need to build trust between myself and my followers and among all of us. I need to demonstrate compassion. I need to provide stability. And I need to infuse everything with hope because we always want hope where we work and in our lives. This all made me think of a class that we offer here at my church called Interpersonal Care. And it's built on being able to express empathy to one another. God changes people not simply through the words we speak, but through the way we speak those words. And being someone that demonstrates empathy is often very helpful for meeting the basic needs of our followers. Empathy is feeling with people. It's doing things like making sure that you're understanding their perspective. It's being non-judgmental. It's recognizing the emotions in others. And when necessary, it's communicating your understanding of their emotions and gaining clarity on those emotions. Overall, it's what we're trying to do in this class, and that's taking steps in making connections and building relationships. I think something that I learned from that interpersonal care class that's been very helpful to me is that I can't be more spiritually mature than I am relationally and emotionally mature. And I think back to a class that all of you should have taken probably at the beginning of your program, and one of the courses that I've had the honor of teaching. It's SPEAR 550, and it's Spiritual Life and Leadership. And in that class, you all wrote a growth plan, a spiritual growth plan, and it included things like looking at the various pathways and your strong pathways, looking at various spiritual disciplines and implementing them in your spiritual life. It looked at Nouwen's temptations and how to avoid those temptations in ministry. And in that growth plan, you actually set about how over the next 3 years, 2.5, 3 years of your life, you would continue to grow spiritually. I'd love if you did that. Would you dig those out this weekend? Would you think about how you are taking care of yourself? Because you have to make sure that you're spiritually healthy, that you are healthy emotionally, that you're healthy relationally, if you're going to meet the needs of your followers. And for those of us in the United States, we have a 4-day weekend. We're going to be celebrating Labor Day. So many of us have an extra day to think about what's something that fills our bucket. What are you going to do this weekend that perhaps infuses some health? It reinvigorates you and gets you in a place where as a leader, you can pour into your followers and meet those basic needs. Scholars, I am so honored to be on this journey with you. I know I tell you that all the time, but I truly am. I want so much for us to continue to grow to be all God has uniquely created us to be. I continue to pray for you, and as I conclude this video, again, I will say, you are Wesley, and we belong here.